Hopefully it maintains its stream.
Yep, I can see it streaming. Oh, it even popped up on Facebook. You are now live.
Ooh. All right, what's going on, guys? This is Chris with Success Agent. I got my co-host, JP Fluellen. So we're trying something new today. We're actually going to start streaming our podcast live on Facebook, and we're hoping this accomplishes a few things. One, helps keep us accountable, but two, also invites you into the conversation. You know, we got a lot to say, but ultimately, this isn't just for us just to talk. This is for you to also interact. So today, what we're going to be talking about is something called the success equation. I know a lot of people don't like math, or maybe they tell themselves they don't like math, but really it's actually a very simple equation that's actually a lot of fun to do, because it's kind of like you're creating your own destiny, and we're going to help you figure out how to do that. So JP, he is a real estate coach, business coach, and this is something that he talks about a lot with his agents that join in his program. And I'm going to let him kind of take over and really talk about what the success equation is. And then we're actually going to go and look at what my success equation is and try to build that out. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the comments. We're here to engage with you. So JP, what's the success?
Yeah, the success equation basically is just, finding all the different pieces that it's going to take in order to build a successful business, whether it's in real estate or, whatever it is that you're doing, trying to figure out, from point A to point B, what are the different pieces that it's going to equal to a paycheck? Because ultimately you got to start with a paycheck, and then it leads into a career, and then it leads into a business. Right. And so, first of all, you got to find that thing that you are passionate about, that thing that you're going to see yourself doing for the next 15, 20 years. Because if it's, if you're just trying to do things just for the drive of making money, then you're not going to, be passionate, and it's going to bleed out into your business.
So you're saying that real estate isn't just about making money?
Well, right. Exactly. I mean, the thing is, like, if you're passionate about what you're doing, then the money comes as a result of the efforts. So, right. Obviously, we're going to talk about this in future episodes about, doing the right activities to get the right results and then set the right goals. And so a lot of those things, those daily activities, those routines that you do in order to produce the right results, and I call those income producing activities versus non-income producing activities.
Uh-huh.
And, and a lot of the literature out there about becoming successful in real estate talks about these, fundamentals. But what it comes down to is that most people don't do the math, and ultimately that's what we're talking about here, is doing the math. You do this plus this equals this. And so, if you get up every morning, put your pants on, you got to do that. You got to put your shirt on in order to get dressed, right? If you don't do that, then you're missing something in the equation. So ultimately it comes down to, especially like in real estate, you've got to do the basics. You've got to meet people. You've got to get in front of as many people as humanly possible and have as many conversations as you can. Especially if you're brand new and you don't have, any kind of money or advertising. So you have to pay, if you will, with your time. And so you're going to spend all of that time getting out there and having as many conversations as humanly possible that will eventually lead to, I hear you're in real estate, and so then it just comes out from there. Uh-huh. So you got to have those conversations. And so you got to go where people are. Either that or you're cold calling, you need as many names and numbers as humanly possible. I mean, that's what you got to have is, and then you've got a time block. You've got to be able to set aside a certain amount of time that you feel is going to be efficient. For some people, that's 3 hours. For some people, that's an hour, You know, if you got ADHD, it's 5 minutes, you know? So those are the things that you have to think about when you're, you know, trying to build on a successful platform. And then you got to understand that, you know, getting in front of these many people equals this many appointments, which then equals to this many closings, which then equals to this amount of money. And so you got to be passionate about the journey to get to the end result. Because it's just like if you want to climb Mount Everest, you know, you've definitely got to have some passion about climbing, because you just don't want to just do it because you want to climb Mount Everest. You've got to be passionate and want to climb, you know, because it's about the journey, not necessarily the destination.
So it sounds like the biggest aspect of all of this is actually coming up with the result first, right? So this is result oriented. So we need to figure out what that result is that we're going for. So if you will, we're trying to figure out X before we can even figure out what the other variables are. So figuring out X, that's gonna be big picture. Now, is that like easier to come up with? Let's just say, you know, I want to make $1 million a year. You know, is that how you look at it, or is it more of material items? You know, I want this fancy car and this big house. Or, I mean, how do you come up with that? I'm figuring that it would be best to come from a point of serving. So I want to serve this many people, and to get there, I need to do this. I mean, how do you figure out your success equation? How do you figure out X?
Right. So like when I do my business plans, you know, I have my agents write down, you know, what's livable wages, because a lot of people, you know, they come into, you know, real estate and they're like, oh, I'm going to, you know, make all this money and do all these things and do all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, let's go back to, you know, okay, let's build a business. Cause a lot of people think that real estate is just like a job where you show up, you punch your card, you go sell some houses, and then you collect a paycheck. They don't really think of it in terms of like, you're building a business from zero to, you know, an end result. You know, so people are like, you know, there's a phrase that's gone around a few times in real estate that it's like, we wake up every single day unemployed, you know, so we have to think about every day, what am I going to do today to get myself a paycheck down the road, you know? And so I always tell my folks is like, what is livable wages for you? And then let's break it down backwards from there and say, okay, well then you have to have these many appointments and you got to close these many deals, and these many deals equals to this amount, you know, of net commissions in order for you to have livable wages. So then once you create that baseline, then you kind of understand that anything over that is pretty much gravy at that point.
So what would you consider?
For some people, that number is, you know, one closing a month, which is about, you know, $32,000 a year. And for some people, you know, that's 100,000. So what we try to do is, you know, if you don't know what your livable wages are, you know, then, you know, we just kind of do the $100,000 math and just do it that way. So, because my goal is for every single person to, you know, as a baseline, as consistent income is to make $100,000 a year. You know, and then at that point, then you kind of work your way towards, you know, bigger and better goals. And so if you're going to be materialistic about it and say, okay, well, now I want to buy this car. Okay, well, anything above your livable wages, which basically is the stuff that covers the lights, the gas, the house payment, you know, all of those, the credit cards, all of that stuff is covered. And then you're like, okay, well, now I want to buy this car. And so we look at it from the perspective of, you know, I'm going to buy this car with at least 20 to 30% down. Or, you know, if you just want to dip your toes, then just lease the thing and then, you know, get a different car every year. So, and then you can write it off as a business expense, but that's a whole nother podcast.
We'll have to get a CPA in for that.
I know, right? Maybe we should get one on the next show about how we can reach our goals and dreams and write everything off.
Exactly. That's what we all got in business for, right? To write off lunches. So let's just start with the 100,000 math, 100,000 equation. for me, if I were to be making $100,000 a year, I know that I'd be living pretty comfortable. All my wages or all my expenses are completely covered. I can save 30% and I still have enough for the tax man at the end of the year. So to get to that 100,000 though, I guess the first thing we would need to figure out is real estate specific. What's the average home price that you work with? Would you say that's a good starting point?
Yes.
So like in my market, I know your market's different. So I'm based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, JP's in Wyoming. My average home value here is $379,000. For you, what is it in Wyoming?
It's about 250.
Okay. So let's just, since we're going to do this for me anyway, 379. Oops. Assume we get the full 6% and divide that by 2. Now we're looking at a total per side, assuming a 3% commission of $11,370. Now we're both
take out your split.
Yeah, so I was gonna say we're both part of EXP. So for like the way EXP works, for the first like 16,000 or something like that, they get 20%.
Yes.
So let's assume I get 80% of that. So I'm looking at 9,000. Let's just call it 9,000 even.
And let's be fair, you got to take out your taxes.
Okay, so we do that up front.
Let's estimate. Usually, to be ultra conservative, the accountants usually say you want to take 30%, and that's not taking into account any of your write-offs or anything like that. So let's take 30% of that as taxes.
All right, so 3,000 taxes, 6,000 income. Right, so we're not gonna get too hyper specific here. So 6,000 per deal that I would close up to the 16,000 cap, but we're not gonna do that either. So if I wanna so when you say this is like my take home, not including taxes, right? So 100,000, not with taxes already taken out, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, take 100,000 divided by 6. That tells you how many closings you need to have.
So 16. Well, let's round up, 17. So does the math stop there?
What do you mean?
So simple answer is no. So how do we get 17 closings? I guess that's what I was trying to lead into. So then you have to ask yourself, how do you get 17 closings, right?
Right.
So how do you do that? Where do we go from here?
So basically, based on lead gen,
okay.
So to be ultra conservative, so you get a vetted lead from a lead source that's, ready to go. They want to go look at some houses, and let's say you close 70% of those.
Okay. So 70%.
So 7 out of 10 leads are going to, well, let's even be more conservative. So let's say 7 out of 10 want to go look at property, and half of those close. So you need 10 vetted, you need basically 10 vetted leads a month.
Okay.
And how are you going to get those?
Right. So like the typical conversion ratio, I always like to, play conservative too, is anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending on your source. I always just go with 2. 1 out of 50 will close. And that's not like that's not closing this month, that's closing in 6 months.
Right.
So you got to think long game here. And there's, it'll probably be 5% for 18 months total, but we're just going to focus on the first 6. We're going to say 50% will close in the first 6. So you have 50%.
You need 100 leads a month to get 2 closed deals.
Well, what about your 50% close ratio? Because then you would need 200. Because if you're saying 1 out of 50 is going to be a good lead, but 1 out of 100 will actually close because you have a 50% close ratio, you actually need 200 leads.
Right.
Right? So then the question becomes, how do you get 200 leads? It's actually not that hard. We're going to kind of cover some of that stuff, primarily with EXP related stuff, because we have those resources available and they're amazing. So we're gonna give you tricks on how to use that stuff. But so you need 200 leads per month. We'll just call it a banker's year. So you need about 7 leads per day. So how many leads do you usually generate a month?
Oh, it's about 120.
Okay. How many lead sources do you use?
3.
3.
I mean, and if we're talking realistic numbers, I mean, you're gonna close a higher ratio kind of in this area because of the competition that actually do their work, do the job and do it well is pretty limited. So I mean, our close ratio is much higher than that. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. It's about right.
Okay.
46 deals a month close.
Okay.
So it's a little bit higher than 3%. So.
Okay. And we're playing modest here anyway. It's always better to play modest.
Yeah.
I know you're not a big fan of Ty Lopez, but he always has like this, what he calls the jet fighter mentality. The worst possible scenario, the best possible scenario, and what's most likely to happen. And you have to figure out what those scenarios are for each and be able to basically work with them. Just be prepared for them. I think it's also like a 6 Sigma thing. So 7 leads a day. Now, so we have KV Core. If you're an EXP agent, you have KV Core too. Really recommend it. So what we're doing right now is creating Craigslist ads, and you can just create these things constantly. Did I lose you, JP? Yeah, it looks like it. So you can basically use KV Core to create Craigslist ads. You can use Facebook Marketplace, and these are all free avenues to advertise listings. And the best part, if like you're a new agent like me, you can just use EXP listings and help promote them. Now it's good of you to reach out to those agents and get their approval to advertise their listings. Most of the time agents will be okay with it because it's just free marketing that they didn't have to do, and they can help sell their services to potential listings. So yeah, that's what I use. I use Craigslist, and really the best thing that you can do, instead of trying to sit, 1 day a week and creating 25 ads, try to create 5 a day. And that way you always have a constant refreshing of new material on Craigslist to generate those leads. And you're also just pacing yourself, because honestly, no one really wants to sit behind a desk for hours a day, 1 time a week, just downloading pictures and posting to Craigslist. It's really not that much fun. So yeah, definitely stagger that, and that'll also help keep your inventory fresh. So the reason I say 5 is because chances are those ads are going to generate 1 lead a day. Now, obviously, it's going to be staggered depending on the day. Weekends you're going to get more hits than weekdays. Also, if you post a Facebook Marketplace, you just doubled your ads. So 5 properties, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, 10 ads. You don't even have to generate a lead per day from those lead sources, which is pretty great. And it's actually very obtainable. So, this is where I would bounce back to JP. Of course, looks like he's disconnected. But, from here, we have our way to generate leads. We know how many leads we need to generate to make that $100,000 income. We already know, this will truly give me the $100,000 income that I'm looking for because of taxes and all that good stuff. Then the next part of this equation is really to figure out your time. How are you going to accomplish this? Now, if you just generate 100 leads, I guess we completely lost him. If you just generate 100 leads, but you don't call anyone, you're not going to get anywhere, right? These leads aren't going to call you. It would be great if they did, but they're not going to call you and say, hey, let's go set up a showing. You have to actually go out there, build some rapport, and get them in the car. But of course, you have to create a relationship first. So make sure you time block for that, or create a strategy to do it. JP and I were working really closely with a technology company called Skylar 360. Skylar 360 is an artificial intelligence company. We work really closely with them, and they do a really killer job of working with KV Core. And what I actually have set up to save my time, so I'm not just sitting on the phones all day, is to have the people call into my Skylar number, and then Skylar takes over, initiates the conversation, and does some vetting. And once they reach a certain point within the AI text tree, which is simply a technical term for the conversation, Skylar then notifies me, kind of like an ISA, to take over, to really keep that conversation going. And once you get all this set up and you understand how many leads you need, and you understand your conversion ratios, and you understand what's livable and what you actually want to make, once you have all that stuff, you have your success equation. And then just time block. So figuring out how you work best. I know that I need to get up and walk every 30 minutes. I need to put this stuff away and just take a 5-minute break. Something I really recommend for people like me is called the Pomodoro effect. I think that's what it's called. I might be wrong on that, but I believe it's the Pomodoro. And basically it's work 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Work 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break. You're going to repeat that 4 times. And then after your 4th 30-minute working session, so you're already basically 2.5 hours in, you take a 30-minute full break, you step away, and you just let your brain relax and kind of take care of the little things that popped up in your head. Another important aspect of that is writing down on sticky notes. If you have a distracting thought, just get it out of your head. But I'm kind of going on a little side tangent because next week we're going to be covering working in a distraction-free environment. So that's really all I got. Unfortunately, we lost JP. Hopefully this doesn't keep happening. But again, this is our first time actually on live, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you didn't catch last week's episode, that was focused on building your foundations for your business, understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, and really focusing on working in your strengths to help grow your business as quickly as possible, but also laying down a set plan that you can follow that's going to help build your business's foundation. JP and I, we have very different business models. JP is more of a traditional agent. I am more of a referring agent. I'm just good with technology, and JP is really good with people. And understanding that stuff is super important. So I really do recommend going back to last week's episode, episode 9 of the Success Agent podcast. And going forward, next week, we're going to be covering, like I said, creating a distraction-free environment so you can really thrive as an agent. Guys, if you need to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, you can just comment on this video, of course. I don't see any comments on our live stream, but I'm sure that'll change as we start growing. And we'll see you next week. If you need to get a hold of me, my new email address is chris.successagent@gmail.com. You can catch us on this Facebook page at Success Agent. And I don't actually have JP's info. I believe it's james.fluellen@gmail.com. So guys, we'll catch you next week. We'll look forward to it, and let us know what you guys thought. Now I have to figure out how to close this.